Your hand is on the back door, and the house is so quiet you can hear the clock in the kitchen, the one your wife picked out from the Sears catalog, ticking off each second like it has nowhere else to be. You have been home for 11 minutes. Your boots are by the mat. Your lunch pail is on the counter with the thermos still inside, and the smell of whatever she is making, pot roast you think, with carrots and potatoes and the good gravy, the one she makes on Fridays, has filled every room in a house you own outright on a single income. You are 30 years old, you work at the plant, and somehow, impossibly, by every metric that will be used to measure financial health for the next 7 decades, you're winning. The year's 1955. Your name does not matter. What matters is the number on your pay stub, which you will unfold from your shirt pocket tonight after dinner while your wife does the dishes, and your 3 children, 7, 5, and 2, make enough noise in the living room to be heard through walls that are, frankly, thin. The number is $82.40. That is your weekly take-home from the line at a manufacturing plant outside of Chicago, where you have worked since you came back from Korea in 1953. You earn roughly $1.73 an hour, 40 hours a week, most weeks. Time and a half when they need you Saturday. Your annual income lands somewhere around $4,400, which is almost exactly the median family income in the United States this year. You are not exceptional. You are average. And average, in 1955, is a word that has not yet learned to mean struggling. Your house cost $11,500, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, attached garage, a backyard with grass your wife is particular about, and a fence you built yourself on a Saturday in April. The mortgage is a 30-year fixed through the VA because you are a veteran, and the GI Bill has made you, without your fully understanding it, one of the luckiest financial actors in American history. Your down payment was nothing, $0. The interest rate is 4.5%. Your monthly payment, taxes included, is $61. That is less than a quarter of your monthly take-home pay. You will not understand for another 50 years how radical that ratio is, because right now it just feels normal. Everyone on your street has the same deal. You do not yet know that you are living inside an economic experiment that will never be repeated. There is a man named Phil Brennan, 2 houses down. You and Phil started at the plant the same week. Phil makes what you make, almost to the cent, but Phil did not buy. Phil rents a place on Kedzie for $55 a month, and he says renting gives him freedom, says he does not want to be tied down to a house and a lawn and a mortgage he will be paying until he is 60. Phil drives a newer car, a 1955 Bel Air, 2-tone, which he bought off the lot for just under $2,000. You drive a 1952 Ford you bought used for $600. Phil eats out more than you do. Phil has a television that is larger than yours. And right now, in the autumn of 1955, Phil's life looks almost indistinguishable from yours in every way that strangers can see. You will remember this later. The car in your garage, the used Ford, cost you 3 months of careful saving. You paid cash because that is how you buy things. There is no credit card in your wallet. The concept exists. Diners Club has been around since 1950, but you have never seen one, and nobody you know carries one. You buy things with money you have. If you do not have the money, you do not buy the thing. This is not discipline. This is just the architecture of how commerce works in your world. It shapes your financial psychology in ways no one will name for decades. You do not carry revolving debt because revolving debt, for consumers like you, barely exists yet. Your wife, Eleanor, has not worked since your second child was born. She does not have a bank account in her own name. She does not need one. she tells her mother, because you handle the money. This is true, and it is also something neither of you examines closely. Eleanor manages the weekly budget, $40 for groceries, which fills the icebox in the pantry and leaves enough for the bakery on Sunday. She tracks every cent in a notebook she keeps in the kitchen drawer. A small green ledger with a fabric cover, and the entries are written in pencil because pencil can be erased if she makes a mistake. You do not know that this notebook, this ordinary domestic artifact, represents a form of financial literacy that will be called budgeting 60 years from now and sold back to a future generation as an app for $4.99 a month. Friday nights you drive to the diner on Route 66, and the four of you, the baby stays with Eleanor's mother, eat hamburgers and drink milkshakes, and the check is $1.85. You leave a quarter tip. The math of this meal against your income is so unstressful that you have never once done it. You simply go, you simply pay, you simply leave. In the world your grandchildren will live in, that unthinking ease around a restaurant check will be a form of wealth almost no one at the median recognizes as lost. Now here is the part you do not talk about at the diner, the part that lives in the back of your mind, when you lie awake after Eleanor has fallen asleep and the house has gone quiet again. You are building something, not just the house, not just the equity that rises a little each year as you pay down the principal and the neighborhoods around you fill up. You are building a future without knowing its name. At the plant, your union contract includes a defined benefit pension. You do not call it that. You call it the pension. What it means is this: if you work at this plant for 30 years, you will retire at 60 and receive a monthly check, indexed loosely to your final salary, for the rest of your life. Roughly 40% of private sector workers in America have some version of this arrangement right now. You do not understand the actuarial mechanics. You do not need to. The company funds it. The union negotiated it. You show up, and it accrues, like sediment, like something geological. And the idea that it might not be there when you need it has not occurred to you, because it has not occurred to anyone. Your oldest, David, is 7. He will want to go to college. You know this because his teacher told Eleanor he is the best reader in his class, and that sentence has been living in your chest like a small warm engine ever since. A year at the state university costs roughly $140 in tuition. Room and board adds maybe $400 more. Call it $550 a year, total, for your son to attend a public university and live on campus. That is less than 3 months of your gross pay. You are not saving for it yet, because there is nothing to panic about. A summer of factory work would cover most of a year's tuition. The notion that college will one day cost more than a house has not been invented. It would sound, if you said it aloud at the diner, like a joke. 3 years from now, though you do not know this, Phil Brennan will knock on your door at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, which is unusual. He will stand on your porch with his hat in his hands and ask if he can borrow $300. He will not say what it is for. You will lend it to him because he is your neighbor, and because $300, while significant, is not a sum that threatens your household. Eleanor will not speak to you for 2 days. Not because of the money exactly, but because you did not discuss it with her first. Phil will pay you back over 6 months. You will never learn what the $300 was for, but something in the way Phil holds himself will change after that night. A slight rearrangement of the posture, and you will begin to notice that the two-tone Bel Air sits in his driveway more often, as if he is driving it less, as if the cost of gasoline, 23 cents a gallon, has started to matter to a man for whom it previously did not. The country you live in is producing roughly half of the world's manufactured goods. You do not know this statistic. You know it as a feeling, the feeling that the plant is always hiring, that overtime is available when you want it, that the foreman talks about expansion the way other people talk about weather, as something obvious and ongoing. The United States in 1955 is an industrial monopoly operating in a world where its competitors are still rebuilding from rubble. Germany, Japan, Britain, they are not yet back. They will come back. And when they do, the arithmetic of your life, the simple arithmetic, where one man's 40 hours buys a house and a car and a family and a future, will begin to unravel so slowly that no single generation will be able to name the year it broke. But you do not live in that future. You live in the kitchen, where Eleanor is cutting the pot roast and the children are setting the table with the plates that were a wedding gift, and the radio is playing something you are not really listening to. You live in the moment when your 5-year-old asks if you are rich, and you laugh because the question is absurd, because you are a factory worker who earns $4,400 a year, and the word rich belongs to someone else. But here is what the laugh conceals. You own your home. You owe nothing on your car. Your children will go to college without debt. You will retire with a pension. Your wife does not work because she does not have to, and you do not work 2 jobs because you do not need to. By any measure that future economists will use, you are living in the most financially secure period the American middle class will ever experience. You just cannot see it because you are inside it, the way you cannot see the shape of a house when you are standing in one of its rooms. $11,500 in the world your grandchildren will inherit. That number will carry the purchasing power of roughly $130,000. But the house it bought you, the one with the thin walls and the yard with the fence you built, will be worth $400,000 in the future market, maybe more. The land beneath your feet is accumulating value at a rate that will outpace wages for the next 7 decades. You are not investing, you are just living. And living in 1955 on a single salary at the median turns out to be one of the most aggressive wealth-building strategies in American history. Nobody designed it to feel like a strategy. That is what made it work. Summers, you drive the family to a lake in Wisconsin, 200 miles, a cabin that costs $35 for the week, and the children swim while Eleanor reads, and you fish from a dock that wobbles. The total trip, gas, food, cabin, the popsicles from the general store, the one souvenir each child is allowed to choose, costs you under $100. You take this trip every year. You have never once called it a luxury. It is simply what you do in July, the way paying the mortgage is what you do on the 1st of the month, the way tithing at church is what you do on Sunday. The financial architecture of your life has no cracks wide enough to produce anxiety, and so you do not experience the particular modern condition of having money and still feeling broke. Eleanor is pregnant again, she told you last week. You did the math in your head. 1 more child, 1 more mouth, the cost of diapers, the cost of milk, the eventual cost of shoes, and the math worked. It just worked. You did not open a spreadsheet. You did not calculate your debt-to-income ratio. You did not post in a forum asking strangers whether you could afford a 4th child on a single income. You sat at the kitchen table and you felt something that you would never call by its name. Because in 1955, there is no language for the absence of financial dread. There is only the way you reached across the table and put your hand over Eleanor's hand. And neither of you said anything about money, because there was nothing about money that needed to be said. 23 years from now, your pension will arrive on the 1st of every month, the way your paycheck once did. David will have finished college, all 4 years, for less than the price of that used Ford you drove in 1955. Your house will be paid off. You will sit on the porch of a home you own free and clear and watch the neighborhood change. New families, younger families, families where both parents work and the math still feels tight. And you will wonder, in a way you cannot articulate, what happened to the country that made your life so ordinary. It never occurred to you to be grateful. Phil Brennan will have moved by then. You will not know where. Someone will say, Florida. Someone else will say, he went back to his sister's place on the south side. The Bel Air will be long gone. And the last time you saw Phil, years before, he was thinner than you remembered and wearing a coat you did not recognize. You never found out what the $300 was for. You think about it sometimes, not because the money mattered, but because the asking did, because a man who looked exactly like you on paper, who earned the same wage at the same plant in the same year, somehow ended up on your porch with his hat in his hands. And the distance between your life and his was not a distance you could measure in dollars. Eleanor is calling from the kitchen. The pot roast is ready. Your children are loud. The clock is ticking. You push back from whatever you were thinking about and stand, and the floor is solid beneath you, and outside the streetlights are coming on one by one, and a man you have never met is walking past your house, looking at the windows, the way a person looks at something they are trying to memorize.